Good morning, everybody. It's so good to see. I love it. It reminds me of a fifth grade class that I recently visited, and everybody said, "Good morning," and I just love that. So let's hear it louder. Good morning. There we go. Thank you. And hi, Zoomies, over there as well. Hi, hi, hi. I welcome you to the Spiritual Center of the Rockies. I'd like to open our time together by sharing our mission statement. We are an inclusive spiritual community where we recognize and express our oneness with our Creator and all creation. Now, given that, since we haven't done this for a while, I wanted to share our vision because, with a mission gets us to the vision. So let's figure out where we're going. And here's our vision. Unity Spiritual Center in the Rockies, grounded in meditation, prayer, and healing, celebrating the Christ spirit within all people, and with a striving spirit of community and oneness, shall be a leading spiritual light throughout the Pikes Peak region and the world. Let's hear it. Let's hear it for us. Yay? Absolutely. Is anyone here for the first time? All right. Well, we're happy to have you here for the second, third, and fourth, and that many times. Our speaker today is going to be our beloved David Goldberg, Dr. David Goldberg. And Ruby, would you now open us with the sanctuary prayer?
Absolutely. And good morning, everyone. The lyrics are on the screen if you're here in person, and on Zoom they will be in the chat. And I invite you to join us in our opening song, Sanctuary. Love, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Love, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Love, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. A sanctuary for you.
Or is that better?
We can't hear you on Zoom.
Thank you. How's that?
We can hear you now.
It was probably better the other way.
They had to help.
Well, thank you. Before we move into that moment of meditation, I apologize for a little discombobulation this morning. There's so much going on. It's good and it's glorious. And I'm so grateful for all of you who are here again. I'm grateful for so many new faces that I may not have had the chance to connect with. Welcome back. This is your home and you are always welcome here. I wanted to augment just a couple of announcements, add a couple of announcements that Marlene made and joyously always shows up in service. First, our first workshop of the year is going to be the first Sunday in February. It's going to be Sunday, February 5th, and it is Make Your Own Oracle Deck. So if you have ever worked with an Oracle deck, this one you get to create yourself with your own images, in your own words, in your own consciousness. So I think it's going to be pretty extraordinary. It's Sunday, February 5th from 12:30 to 2:30. It will be here on site. For our Zoom folks, we will do everything we can to accommodate you if you'd like to participate online. Don't hear promises, hear exploration. We'll see what we can do to accommodate you. The energy exchange is $44. That includes all the materials, and you'll leave again with your own beautiful Oracle deck. There are flyers, and it's being facilitated by Rick Finbow and myself, and there are flyers in the back of the sanctuary. You can get them as you leave. So I always like to make good news announcements when appropriate. And I think one of the good news announcements today is there's no Broncos game. Sorry. Little bit of personal lack of humor there. But another really fun announcement that I want to share with you. I love Colorado, and I also love to get away from Colorado sometimes in the winter. So next January, we have created an opportunity, and we would love for all of you to join us for Spirit at Sea. We're doing a gratitude cruise. So imagine yourselves, as Sophia on the Golden Girls used to say, imagine yourself on a beautiful ship in the middle of the sea, cruising to ports in Mexico, having conversations with like-minded beings, with other Unity ministers, with special guest musicians, and just literally being in the flow. So that's going to be a 7-day Baja, Mexico cruise from January 6th to January 13th. Our ports of call are Cabo San Lucas, La Paz, and Laredo. We have 3 days at sea just to hang out, and we have flyers at the back of the room for that as well. So as you step into River's wonderful workshop around visioning and vision boards, I would love to see this on everybody's vision board, right? So those are just 2 more announcements. And again, I appreciate all of the feedback that we got last week in the town hall meeting about what you like and what you don't like. We are working to streamline the service. We're working to streamline the announcements, and just know that we feel blessed in that experience. And so, I'm sorry, in addition to just grabbing a flyer, I wanted you to know that we're going to have a get acquainted meeting for those who would just like more information. I recognize you can read, I recognize you can go to websites, and sometimes community and conversation fits the bill. So we're going to have a meeting next Sunday after service, just a Q&A to answer your questions, to field any thoughts or ideas, to help you gain a little more clarity. So if you feel called, we'd love to have you join us. And that will be online as well. So we look forward to having you join us. So again, thank you for that. Let us take a moment now and just ground and step into that sacred space of prayer. So I release the busyness of the morning, allowing myself to be fully present right here and right now. This is our time to connect with that still small voice within. This is our time to connect with our higher power. I know it is good. I call it divinely inspired. I call it divinely appointed. I bless the energy in the space, those who have come in celebration of birthdays, of anniversaries, of weddings, of all of life's rituals. Bless you and thank you for celebrating with us. For those who have come with a heavy heart for whatever reason, given their human experience this week, thank you for choosing to be here. Thank you for allowing us to see you and to hold your heart. You are safe. We are love expressing. So as I bask in that energy, in the gloriousness, I know that we are all one, that we are all a part of the one. I simply rest. I release. I relax. I allow it to be. And so it is.
I am certain we are ready, standing firm, feet planted steady. No, this world is heavy, arms are loaded, drawn back, gaze steady. All my visions I speak my tongue, learn to pace my steer, my run. Leave no trace, but the moment's coming. We will build bridges for our daughters and our sons. Find your way, find your way. Whether you fumble, lost and graceful, darling, find your way. Whether you fumble, lost and graceful, darling, find your way. When you rise and move your feet, find the pulse and find the beat. Rock the walk and don't retreat, and we will rise as one complete. When you rise and move your feet, find the pulse and find your beat, and rock the walk and don't retreat, and we will rise as one complete. Time's arriving, I claim my truth, and I lift my hand over you, and I hold 'em up in my mighty shoes and teach them strength, and I let them choose. Find your way, find your way. Whether you fumble, lost and graceful, darling, find your way. Deliver truth, our kingdom come. I don't need to walk and I don't need to run. I just skip into the sun. When I'm lost, I'll find my way, find my way, find your way. Whether you fumble, lost and graceful, darling, find your way.
How about one more chorus? One more chorus, yeah?
Find your way, find your way. Whether you fumble, lost and graceful, darling, find your way, find your way, find your way.
How blessed are we? Thank you, Ruby. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. So, as we transition into a new service, we're also transitioning to be more eco-friendly and perhaps a little bit more electronic. So, as I'm toggling back and forth, I'm really not on Facebook or texting with friends. Now let's see. So what I wanted to share with you this morning, my friends, is in that space of joy, in that space of connection, in that space of finding ourselves together on that one place, we wanted to recognize one of our own. We wanted to recognize our beautiful Kathy Fallon, who hopefully is joining us online on this, her soul arrival day, on this, her birthday. So congratulations. Just know, sweetheart, that there she is. How about a chorus of happy birthday? I know it, but you really don't want me leading it. This is for you, sweet Kathy.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kathy. Happy birthday to you.
We surround you with love and light, and you live in our hearts, dear one. We look forward to having you with us in person when the timing is perfect. So as we step into our service today, then, my friends, it seems as though my story about the memorial that I did yesterday, or was going to do at the time, with sweet Bobby Joe struck a chord. And I just wanted to follow up with you. I learned a lot, as I always do at her service yesterday. And I have to tell you, with the great honor in supporting people through memorials and funerals and celebrations of life, I always ask that question as to how the family wants to refer to this ritual, because it helps me with tone, it helps me with intention. And when I was speaking with Bobby Joe's mom, Mary, spelled Mary like Merry Christmas, she said, David, we want this to be a celebration of life. And she was clear and she was direct, and I showed up, and there were 30 or 40 helium balloons of all shapes and sizes and colors. And I can tell you, a number of folks want a celebration of life, and for whatever reason, energetically, it may not always live up to that billing. And yesterday's celebration for Bobby Joe was truly that. And I wanted to share with you one thing that I learned that just tickled my funny bone. It just makes me laugh. So her dad got up and thanked everybody and all of the caregivers and everybody that helped them care for her during her 37 years on the planet. And I shared with you that Bobby Joe had never eaten solid food, and yet she loved to go out to dinner. The thing that I didn't know is whenever she went out to dinner, her thing was collecting plates. And this is her dad sharing this story, right? He said, so wherever we would go, somehow she would communicate with whoever, because she was nonverbal, she would communicate with whoever was next to her that she really wanted one of those plates for her collection. And she said, or Dad said, so we were out to dinner, as we, sometimes were, and we happened to have a friend with us who was a nun. And Bobby Joe started working her magic on this nun, because she happened to be next to her and she really wanted her plate. She needed to expand her connection. And her dad said, to be clear, my dear daughter is asking a nun to steal. And then he said, and she was successful. That just made me laugh. I'm like, go Bobby Joe, go sister, right? God is in, around, and through it all. So that is living out loud. That is doing what is ours to do as we continue to explore what that looks like and feels like for us in this year of 2023. And this month, as we continue to look at root and reboot, as we continue to look at how we can be grounded in our truth, how we can be grounded in principle, how we can be grounded in oneness and love, and still be open at the top, right? That is relevance. That is treat and move your feet. That is how do we take something from the page and put it into direct application in our lives. So that's what we're about. If you're new or if you're just getting refreshed or if you've just come back, that's what we're doing. We love you, we bless you, we invite you to be on this journey with us, and you will be different than when you walked in that door. So that is a good thing. So as I was thinking about our thoughts today around the one song of life, the one song of love, let us begin just by simply knowing that we are one with the one, that we are that connection to the divine, whatever that looks like and feels like to us. I have shared with you before that right out of high school, I toured with the musical group Up With People. And we had a number of wonderful experiences. I was able to travel to 3 continents and 8 countries and have 150 host families all over the world. And what a glorious learning experience that was. And my second year, my first year, the kickoff song in the show that we did all over the world is called We Are Many, We Are One. I won't burst into the song or the dance, for which you should be grateful. But what I will share with you is the lyric, which so many song lyrics speak to my heart. The lyric for this song is, we are many, we are one, brothers and sisters wherever you're from. We all dance to a different drum. We are many and we are one. And that's what I got to sing for a year, traveling around the world. Sounds very unity to me. So that is what we're stepping into then, is that knowing of our oneness and that knowing of the universal voice. And as we know that then, perhaps the shorthand version might be, as God is, so am I. Can you share that with me, please? As God is, so am I. Yeah. And so the invitation for me and for all of us is to move that from our head knowledge to our heart knowledge. It's to make that the longest journey of the 18 inches from the head to the heart. As many of you know, the Fillmores spoke and wrote so clearly that I am one, that as I am, so we are. So our goal is to realize not only our own individual power, but to see and work in concert with that same power that exists within everyone whom we meet, right? So sometimes we will say, see, here's that whole paper thing. That's why we're going electronic. Sometimes we will say that I am a victim of my circumstance. I am a victim of those tapes, wherever those tapes came from, that continue to play in my head, that I'm not enough, that I'm too this, that I'm not enough that I'm too loud, that I'm too quiet. So our invitation is to explore those. And if any of that still serves you, that's great. Continue to move forward with it. And if you've outgrown any of that, release it. Release it back to the nothingness from which it came. And one of my favorite Bob Newhart show episodes, when he's talking with somebody and she's explaining her problems, and that she was very concerned about being washed away in a flood or some such thing. And he said, have you ever been washed away in a flood? And she said, no. And he said, stop it. So worry is praying for what we don't want, right? That is what we are stepping into then. So what we know then, our teaching tells us not only to live in conscious awareness of the law of cause and effect, i.e., as we think, so we experience, but it's also in alignment with the preeminent truth that all is love. So when I'm able to be in that space for myself, I get to show up in that space for you and for our community as I choose. We know that the love that is spirit is always for our good. We know that God is always conspiring for our good. We know that the universe always has our back. And sometimes in our human experience, it's harder to know that for ourselves. So that's when you get to reach out to a member of this beloved community who knows you and sees your light. That's when you get to reach out to Linda and say, will you pray with me? I'm having a tough time. That's when you get to reach out to me and say, David, I'm having a challenge here, because we're all on this path together. And we get to see the light of each other when our humanness gets in the way of seeing it for ourselves. Does that make sense? Yes. So that is what we're about. I love this quote. The great love of the universe must be one with the great law of its own being. And as we approach love through the law, this then is the teaching, love and law. As the love of God is perfect, so the law of God is also perfect. We must understand this. And that is why we are taking time this month to get back to basics as we talk about prayer, as we talk about oneness. So good for us as we choose to be in that space of love, and also good for us as we recognize the law, as we recognize the universal experience that is calling us. What we know to be true is that everyone is a potential Christ, and everyone has inherent God power within. Now, sometimes as spiritual beings, I can know that for you, I can know that for Forrest, I can know that for Mark, when you don't know it for yourself. And that's what we get to see in everybody and everything, my friends. Sometimes it's easier when we're in our community, and I know you, and I can see the Christ consciousness, and I can hold the Christ light within you. And then when we go outside, maybe we make a trip to a big box store on a weekend, which is something that I would prefer not to do anymore. And sometimes when I do that, I show up as less than spiritual. Sometimes when I'm driving, I show up as less than spiritual. And what I get to know is that person is also a perfect expression of the divine, even when, especially when, they're showing up in interesting ways, right? So a while back, I was on my way to do a Sunday talk. And I was doing my thing, and I hope I was grounded and maybe going the speed limit. And this car, apparently I wasn't going fast enough. This car pulled out around me, passed me, gave me the middle finger, cut back in front of me, sped up, dove into the church parking lot, and then sat there to listen to my talk. Now, my human self says, I'm feeling less than spiritual in this moment. And my higher self says, bless you, love you, honor you. I trust that you got to where you needed to be, and that you're having the experience that is feeding your soul, right? So that's always the conundrum. We get to react from a human emotional position, and we have the option of responding perhaps from our higher self. So that is what we know. That is what we see. We see that Christ consciousness. We acknowledge that in each other. If anyone has ever uttered the word namaste, that is what we're doing. The divine in me blesses and recognizes the divine in you. So that is what we are doing. Along those lines, I wanted to share with you, if you may not be familiar, we are a part of the larger Unity organization or denomination, if you will, called Unity Worldwide Ministries, or UWM. And just this week, it was announced, more good news to share, that the person who was formerly the executive director of UWM, Reverend Shad, they had a title change because the scope of his position had changed. And he's now known as the president and CEO of Unity Worldwide Ministries. And so we love that. Reverend Shad is one of our own from Boulder, Colorado, where his mother and father and sister all continue to practice at Unity of Boulder. And Reverend Shad, S-H-A-D, his full name is Shadrach. So could we get a more biblical name for a leader of our denomination? And I reached out to Shad when I was in my former community at Unity on the Avenue, knowing that he was from Boulder, thinking that he might be coming home for the holidays. And he was kind enough to come by our little Unity on the Avenue Center a couple of times when he was in town, once to do a Sunday talk, and wants to share information with ministers and leadership from all of the unities across the state. And what I got from Shad's presentation was exactly what we're talking about, around rooting and rebooting. He said, we're really clear that we are grounded in the teachings of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. And we don't put them on a pedestal. We don't worship them. Rather, we appreciate their interpretation of what they brought to us. And he said, and this was fascinating from the leader of a worldwide ministerial organization, he said, as we explore our teaching, as we explore all of their readings, feel it, know it, live it, and make it your own. I was like, I wonder what that means. I wonder how much leeway I have to make it my own. And what he's talking about is exactly what we were just referencing. How do we make it relevant? I love what came up last week. What does our Sunday service look like? When do we have it? Why do we have it? Should we have smaller groups? Or what I'm hearing is, when might we re-engage smaller groups? How can we be with this teaching and make it even more relevant for who we are and where we want to take it? So what I heard as part of that is, by rooting ourselves in the foundational spiritual laws of life itself, we have an opportunity to apply these teachings as we live our lives today. And what you've heard shared from this podium before is, our thoughts are a collection not only of our personal experience, but the thoughts of the collective unconscious of the world itself. Had the opportunity to have dinner with some wonderful friends of 40 or 45 years last night, and my friend Kathy was sharing where she is at, that she loves her faith tradition and she loves going to church, and she's clamoring for more. She's at a point where she wants more, not necessarily more church or more religion, but more applicability. She's wanting to get rid of the silos in her life, right? She doesn't want to check her spirituality when she steps into her kids' and her grandkids' homes. She doesn't want to check her love of internationalism and her bilingualism when she goes to serve at the shelter. So what does that look like? How can we incorporate that? And part of our conversation was recognizing that we are complete with the Piscean age and we're moving into the age of Aquarius. And again, right, that song starts playing and running through my head. And that is the truth. That is what we are doing in the age of Aquarius, harmony and understanding, right? The Piscean age was about rules and order and patriarchy, and the Aquarian age is about co-creation and community and empathy. And it only started, 20 or 30 years ago, and an age is 2,000 plus years. So we are still at the dawning of the age of Aquarius. I just share that as an informational point. And so, as we're talking about 2,000 years, as we're talking about an age, from a literary perspective, that speaks to our Western canon. And so those works of art, those works of literature are so ubiquitous that they become a part of our collective vernacular, even though we may be unaware of the source. So it's not only true of literature, but of humanity itself. So everything we think, we are depositing into a spiritual bank account, right? We are creating our spiritual coin, not to be confused with Bitcoin. We have a canon of sorts that plays out in our world decade after decade, century after century. And it looks something like there are always going to be homeless people. There is always going to be poverty. It's just a natural part of civilization. War is inevitable. And as we move into this new age then, as we move into this new dawning, my friends, that doesn't have to be our truth. That is not what we have to lean into. That is not to say it's always been that way, so it's always going to be that way. This is from Science, Superstition, and Common Sense. War will cease, not when God decides this for us, but when enough people know that it is no longer desirable and steadfastly maintain their position. From communion with Spirit, people will come to perceive the deeper reality, the broader sharing in human experience. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We get to choose. We get to see that pattern that says, oh, another homeless person, that's just collateral damage. No, erase, erase, erase. There is a person experiencing homelessness. How might I support them? Yeah, I could give them 20 bucks. And it's equally as important to support them in consciousness and know that that is not the truth of who they are. Does that make sense? That is what we are choosing to step into. So as we begin to look at this new truth, part of that race consciousness, what it might look like for me, what might sound familiar to you, is a loving adult in our lives, whatever age we were, when we did something stupid or foolish or kid-like or, put in your own adjective, when we did something that adults viewed as not very bright, I heard on more than one occasion, "You know better." And depending on the tone, that's a really good thing, right? They're seeing the truth of who I am. They know that I'm a giant soul with short legs. They know that I have access to the universe. They know that I can make different choices. And it all depends on tone, and it all depends on context. So rather than hearing, "You know better," what if we shared, "You know better"? I see that in you, I know that with you and for you, and I know that for myself. So, everyone is a potential Christ, and everyone has inherent God power within. So this awareness moves us out of the traditional roles of hero, victim, and villain, and into a world where we see each other as creators, collaborators, and coaches. We welcome Spirit working with Spirit, co-creating a world that works for all. The other thing that we know is that Spirit is always working for our good, as we referenced earlier. The great love of the universe must be one with the great law of its own being, and we approach love through the law. This then is the teaching, love and law. As the love of God is perfect, so the law of God is also perfect. Needed to underscore that with you and for you. And I also love this from the essay, Getting Along with People. Ernest Holmes wrote, "The well-adjusted person is the one who has been permitted to be an individual, but also has learned to cooperate with others." What that tells us, my friends, is that principle knows nothing of precedent. Sometimes we refer to, well, that's the way it's always been. That's the way we've done it. That's the way we like it. That's the way we don't like it. And we are invited to continuously and consciously be in that place of recreation. Another point is when we think and believe we are impoverished, we limit our possibilities. Oh, I can't do that because I'm retired. I'm on a fixed income. I don't make enough money. Well, what we know is that the medium, the universe, is an objective material. So whatever we plant, it's gotta feed it back to us. So if I'm saying I don't have enough money, I can never make rent on time, I can't pay my mortgage, the universe says, okay, right? So what you are sharing is important. Whatever you're planting, you will receive. We also need to consider that our mental equivalent, what the mental equivalent is that we're creating, and work to activate our conscious mind. For example, we may be thinking, I'd like a new house. And what is the emotion behind that? I want safety. I want security for my family, right? So maybe Spirit has something much greater for you in store than a new house. When I was working, when my late partner had been deceased for 9 or 10 years, and I was ready to call in the next love of my life, I had created this glorious statement. And I was working with my friend and mentor, Reverend Cynthia James. I said, Cynthia, what do you think about this? And I listed everything for this person, right? My mental wallet, my mental check sheet. and she said, honey, that sounds great. What's the problem? And I said, I don't want to limit Spirit. What if Spirit had something else in store for me that's not on my list? And she just kind of looks at me, and she throws her hip out. And she said, honey, you're powerful. You're not that powerful. You can't limit Spirit, right? So what she encouraged me to do after my personal list is to say this or something better. And when I do that, I'm not directing God. I'm not naive enough to say, I may not know what I'm doing, but I really don't think God knows what God is doing either. No, when I say this or something better, it's not for Spirit, it's for me to say if it doesn't come in the form of a perfect house on the corner that I wanted it, it's still good, and it's still in my highest and best good. So much to cover, so much. The other thing I want you to consider, my friends, is you are never alone. You are never alone. You are a part of this community. We have our blood families, we have our biological families, and we have our families of choice. We have our beloved communities, we have our friends of choice, we have our family. And what I want you to consider is, in addition to reaching out for whatever support might be helpful for you, is that there is a power for good in the universe, and we can use it. We are the chemists in the laboratory of life. What should we create? What should we create? I also love the quote that Ernest Holmes shared, that the well-adjusted, oh, that's the one I already shared with you. See, I need to get my systems down here. Okay. So as we move to the next phase then, Taoism tells us whatever is contrary to the Tao soon ends. He who injures others is sure to be injured by them in return. In the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the moral arc of the universe bends toward justice. We may not see it in our lifetime, and I stand with Dr. King in knowing that truth. So as we step into this holiday then, this national Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, I wanted to share with you just a couple of thoughts in that regard. On April 16th, 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. penned the letter from the Birmingham jail. Reverend King and others were being held for violating a court order against parading, demonstrating, boycotting, trespassing, and picketing. The letter was written in response, ironically, to a call for unity. A letter composed by 8 local white clergy members. Their letter called for an end to anti-segregation protests in Birmingham and to find proper channels to achieve a better Birmingham. Excuse me. In response, Dr. King wrote, "Your statement, I am sorry to say, fails to express a similar concern for the conditions that brought about the demonstrations." He called their letter a superficial kind of social analysis that deals merely with effects and does not grapple with the underlying causes. In the letter from the Birmingham City Jail, King wrote that the Negro's greatest stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white citizens counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, "I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action," who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. The letter from the Birmingham jail calls for us to reject the justice of those white clergy members and to redefine justice so that it recognizes the humanity of all the diverse people of this nation. A nation of multiple races, diverse ethnic groups, LGBTQ+ folks, diverse faiths, atheists, agnostics, the poor, the old, all who are marginalized. It asks, how do we achieve the beloved community? Although the term beloved community is most clearly associated with Dr. King, it was first coined in 1913 by the American philosopher Josiah Royce. Royce believed life means nothing, either theoretically or practically, unless we center ourselves as fellow sojourners in the building community grounded in love, redemption, and reconciliation. The beloved community is not simply a philosophical concept, but a way of understanding justice that moves beyond retribution to build a society that is inclusive and redemptive. The community where, as the late U.S. Senator Paul Wellstone said, each person is free to fully develop his or her full potential. Reverend King said, "An individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity." The this King holiday, his words are our collective call as we accept the challenge of creating beloved community. And that is our truth on this day, my friends. If you would join me in a closing prayer. So on this weekend of remembrance, I find myself in a place of deep gratitude, recognizing the scholars, the clergy, the lay people upon whose shoulders I stand. I am grateful for my freedom of thought, my freedom of expression, my freedom of choice, my freedom to express my interpretation of the divine in any way I choose, including no interpretation at all. And I bless all who are on this journey with me, those in this room, those online, those connected to this beloved community in any way. I love it, I bless it, I honor it. As I speak my voice, I encourage everyone to use their voice, to speak their truth, to stand in their power, because all voices are necessary. All energy is necessary as we continue to create a world that works for all. As I release, I let go, I allow it to be. We anchor this together by saying, "And so it is, and so I am, and so we are."
Thank you, Dr. David. Beautifully done, beautifully done. Being able to accept ourselves for who we are and honor that as we go through our life as one, and helping each other to be the best we can be. I love that. I would like to talk about your giving and our giving for Unity of the Rockies. I want to first thank you for your generous giving, and know that when you give to us, Unity of the Rockies, we are giving to the unity worldwide and all of what we stand for. There are several ways you can do that. One is on the website. We can certainly mail a check to Unity here at 1945 Mesa Road. PayPal is another way we can give, not to mention the lovely love offering box that we have in the back. There are also envelopes behind the chairs that you can put your donation in. Let's do that, and let's talk about our divine love. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive.
The hills were alive with wildflowers, and I was as wild, even wilder than they. For at least I could run, they just died in the sun. I refused just to wither in place. Just a wild mountain rose, needing freedom to grow. So I ran, fearing not where I go. When a flower grows wild, it can always survive Wildflowers don't care where they grow. And the flowers I knew in the fields where they grew were content to be lost in the crowd. They were common and close. I had no room for growth, and I wanted so much to branch out. So I uprooted myself from my home ground and left, took my dreams and I took to the road. When a flower grows wild, it can always survive. Wildflowers don't care where they grow. I grew up fast and wild, and I never felt right in a garden so different from me. I just never belonged, I just longed to be gone. So the garden one day set me free. I hitched a ride from the wind, and since she was my friend, I just let her decide where we go. When a flower grows wild, it can always survive. Wildflowers don't care where they grow. Just a wild rambling rose seeking mysteries untold. No regrets for the path that I chose. When a flower grows wild, it can always survive. Wildflowers don't care where they grow. Wildflowers don't care where they grow. Wildflowers don't care where they grow.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ruby. All right, we're going to have announcements. And in addition to what Reverend David told us, aren't those two exciting announcements? Are we all excited about those announcements? Yes. I mean, really, what a beautiful surprise. All right. I want to first mention that the Board of Trustees will have their monthly meeting this Wednesday, the 18th, from 6 to 8. All are invited. That's where all the workings, all the backstage workings of this place take place. And if you have something you'd like to say, please contact Luana Turner at luana.turner@gmail.com. And if you have something to say, limit it to 5 minutes. And once the board knows that you want to communicate, they will determine whether or not it's appropriate for that particular meeting. So I invite you to do that. Linda, would you like to talk about the chaplain program?
You don't have to ask me twice. Okay, in the foyer you will find these prayer chaplain brochures, and we are very excited to announce that our prayer chaplain training this year will be in February and March. And you need to know that there's no experience required, and that we will be having an orientation which will give you all of the information that you need on Sunday, January 29th, which is 2 weeks from today at 11:15. It will be here in the sanctuary and also on Zoom. And then we will have another orientation on February 1st, which is Wednesday at 6:30 on Zoom. So you only need to attend one of those sessions, but you do need to be a member of Unity Spiritual Center in the Rockies. So I want to tell you a little bit about why we need prayer chaplains. In support of our mission and vision, we are committed to reaching out in prayer, comfort and support to our congregation. As Unity in the Rockies continues to grow, and we know that is happening right before our eyes, our prayer chaplains will serve to meet the needs of our extended community. Completing the prayer chaplain training and being a prayer chaplain is transformational soul work. As you discover your greatness and the greatness of others, we are here to support you as you make this next step on your spiritual journey. We invite you to prayerfully consider becoming a prayer chaplain. It is a unique service that differs from many of the other volunteer opportunities in terms of commitment level and responsibilities. So if this is something you think might interest you, pick up a brochure. I'll be in the back to talk to you, and we'll also have a sign-up sheet for the orientation sessions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Question, Linda, back here.
Okay. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you. And thank you, Linda. We want to invite you to help us brighten the platform every week with your contribution of flowers, if you so desire. These flowers were brought to us today by Brenda and John Rogers. It's very important that we know why you might want to give flowers. If you do, we'd love to know why, so we can make that announcement too as a tribute to something in your life, an anniversary or a birthday or whatever it may be. You don't have to have a reason. You can just want to do that. So thank you so much for even considering it. There's a sign-up sheet on the bulletin board, so do sign up for that so we know that we'll have flowers from week to week. Thank you so much. Also, I want to invite you to our fellowship after service, and we need people to help with that on a regular basis, to make coffee, hot water, get the snacks out, that kind of thing. And if your last name ends in PQRSTUV, WXYZ, next week, you have an opportunity to bring something for the fellowship if you so desire. So thank you for that as well. The Sacred Women's Circle, January 28th, is going to have a really cool thing happening. Envisioning Our Year vision boards, and it will be led by River, our lovely vice president of the board. And she is going to provide us with the paper that we need and glue sticks, but bring your own favorite magazines, calendars, artful things to make your vision board. Again, this is always in the newsletter, so do read that. There's also a sign-up sheet for that. There's no sign-up sheet. So this is going to happen on January 28th, that's a Saturday, from 3 to 4:30 p.m., and again, it is in the announcements. We need to RSVP by January 27th. Also, the Sacred Women's Circle meets every fourth Saturday from 2:45 to 4:30. 2:45 is when Zoom is set up, so I want to remind you of that. The Unity Men's Group, I also want to remind you of that. The second and fourth Saturdays of the month, 8:30 to 10. And one last thing is, if any of you are familiar or unfamiliar with Amazon Smile, do you all know what Amazon Smile is? Well, just so you know what a important thing it is to use Unity of the Rockies as where you'd like a donation to go to, we have collected $1,316.39 from Amazon Smile, just people buying stuff they want, and a percentage of that comes to us. So what a great way to do that. I want to remind you of all of that. And I think that's it for the announcements.
We now invite you to sing our closing song with us. So if you would like to go ahead and stand, you can do so, and hold hands if you'd like. But also if you would choose not to hold hands and would like to social distance, that's absolutely fine as well, as we sing our closing song, One Light. Let the light within you shine. We are all connected. Look into another's eyes. See your light reflected. We are one light, shining souls in harmony. We are one light, shining in unity. If you'd like to stay on fellowship on Zoom, you may simply stay online. And if you're here in the sanctuary with us, come ahead and join. You can come forward onto the platform to join in, and there will be coffee and conversation for the next 20 minutes.